Hi everyone, it's Leona with Leona's Designs. I'm here with a project I was working on today. It involves stitching on leaves, which I shared before with the Kathryn's project. But today I came up with a little different twist on how to stitch these leaves. I actually made this little postcard that I stitched these leaves on, and they're slow stitched and there's fabric, and it's on a little card, a little postcard that you can give to a friend. I'm not sure that you could mail it, but maybe you could if you put it in an envelope. But I thought it turned out really nice, and I was going to come on and share with you how I created it. So if you'd like to find out, stick around. I'm going to turn the camera around now and we'll get to it. Okay, so this is the card that I created today. It didn't take too much time. I had these leaves already pressed. I did coat them with Mod Podge to preserve them on both sides. And then after they were dry, I found some fabric that I just stitched onto a piece of cardstock that I cut size 4 by 6, and I stitched it down with a running stitch all the way around, and then I went back through that running stitch, just weaving another line of thread through it, so it created this cute border. And then I started stitching the leaves down, and I just used back stitches to stitch the leaves to this fabric and card. And then I had this little quote: "It's the little things in life that count," that I glued on there. And then on the back, I wrote a little message to my friend, and I put a quote about leaves. "I am just a leaf falling from the tree so that a new bud may grow," by Gemma Malley. And then I glued this piece of cardstock to the back to cover up the stitching. So I think it made a really cute postcard. And I'm going to create one now so you can see the step-by-step way that I did it. So I'll be right back. I'll get my supplies and I'll be right back. Okay, before we get started on doing our postcard, I did just want to show you some of these ideas I have for stitching leaves to make cards or postcards. So stitching leaves on cloth. And I do want to give credit to Kathryn at Kathryn Cloth Tales on YouTube, because she is the one that inspired me to be doing all of this. She had a project a few weeks ago where she showed us how to stitch on leaves. And for that project, I created this beautiful leaf with the eyelet stitch, and I stitched it down to this cloth, a couch stitch down the spine. So I want to give credit for all my ideas here, for her inspiring me to even try something like this. So I was just going to show you a few things that I've had ideas for. I found this really pretty mauve colored maple leaf, and I pressed it. I think it's even from last year. And I had the idea to stitch it down to this tea bag and this mauve colored cloth, which almost is exactly the same color. And that would be on just a little card I would make out of cardstock. I think it's a 4 by 4 size. So that was one of my ideas, and I just stitched the border around the mauve cloth, and then I'm going to probably couch this down. So that's an idea. Here's another idea of just a card that I made out of cardstock, and it's not a postcard. It opens up, and I have these leaves that I found and pressed and Mod Podged, and I'm hoping to stitch them down onto a card. In the background is some cloth. And these, the same thing. I've got a piece of muslin here that's tea-dyed, and I have this fern and this little, what kind of leaves are these? I forget, but they always remind me of little umbrellas. So I'm hoping to make a card out of these. And here's another one. I think this is a hydrangea leaf. Just 2 pieces of cloth. I'm planning to stitch that down to make a card, or just some kind of a, maybe a wall hanging. I think this would look nice if I put it on a, maybe a canvas backing and had a little, and hang it from a little branch. And then this leaf I painted, and it's really old, starting to fall apart. But I painted it with acrylic paint, and I wrote the word change on it, and I do plan to use it. I'm just going to glue it back together on some cloth and then stitch it down. So you can paint on your leaves also. So I just wanted to show you that before we start our postcard, just to inspire you and maybe give you some ideas of what you can do with leaves. So I'm going to put these away and we'll get to our postcard. Okay, now for the postcard, what I did was I took a sheet of cardstock, 8.5 by 11, and I cut it in 2 pieces, 4 by 6, postcard size. So I got 2 4 by 6 pieces out of the cardstock, and that's what I'm going to use for my postcard, one of those. And I cut a piece of fabric that I wanted to use, an inch bigger all around. So this fabric is 7 by 5, 7 by 5, yes. So what I do is I turn the fabric over, where I choose what side I want to use for the front, and then I put the card down so that I have a border on each side of it, and then I iron each side down. And this idea I got from Jeri Bellini on her channel, where we were making excuse me, we were making a little dot a day, and she showed that she had a template where she would, actually I'll show you one. She had a template where she would iron her cloth down to leave a border, and then she would stitch around it so all the sides are not raw. The sides aren't raw. They're all stitched down. So I got that idea from her for making these little dotted days. So thank you for that, Jeri. It's very helpful. So this is my actual postcard. It's not a template, but what I do is I just iron down the cloth on each side, and depending on the cloth, it usually creases very well. If not, I just keep kind of ironing it until I get it so that it folds over nicely. You could steam it if you wanted to. When Jeri was doing hers, she had a little spray bottle, and she would just wet the cloth a little bit. so it would fold easier. Oops. I just love this little travel iron I got on Amazon. It works very well. Ooh, that was hot. Okay, and now what I like to do is I like to trim off the corners right up close to the edge so that it folds over easily when I'm stitching it down. And then I do a little bit of glue to hold it down. When I go to stitch it, just using a glue stick. Just going to put a little bit of glue to hold it down to this card. And don't worry about the corner. If it's not exactly even, you can always trim it later. And when you're cutting your fabric, don't worry if it's exactly an inch wider than your template or your card, because you're just going to fold it over and then you're going to cover this back part with another piece of cardstock anyway after you stitch, so you're really not going to see this. Okay, so now I'm not going to worry about these little parts here. It's not even on the corners. I'm just going to stitch and then I'll snip those off later. So I'm going to stitch, what color should I stitch with? Which leaf did I pick to? I didn't pick a leaf for this. Okay, I need to pick some leaves so I know what color I'm going to stitch with. I'll be right back. Okay, I decided to pick these 3 leaves. They're the same leaves I made on the postcard for my friend. So I'm going to attempt to stitch all 3 down in this order. What I do before I start stitching is I put a little bit of glue on the leaf to hold it down, and then I carefully either couch down right by this center spine. Probably I'll do that on all of these because they're pretty fragile, and these I did not Mod Podge. And I could just stitch them to the fabric, but I choose to stitch them to this card so that they're more secure and it gives a good backing because they're so fragile. I'm afraid if I tried to just stitch them to fabric, they would bend and break. But right now I'm going to stitch the border of this card. So I'm going to come up through the corner in the back, tie the knot, and then I'm going to come through the corner and I'm going to stitch just a running stitch all the way around. And I'll have to just do it in, out, because the fabric's kind of thick and so is the card. just gonna make running stitches all the way around. I'm gonna try to keep my stitches even. But in this case, if I don't, it won't matter because I'm going to go back in after I finish stitching all the way around and weave some threads through these stitches. So they really won't show. Just trying to keep them all in the same line. And it really isn't hard to stitch through cardstock and fabric. Just have to give a little bit more pressure. And try not to make too many holes. But in this case, it doesn't matter because they're not going to show anyway. When you're stitching on the leaf, you want to make sure you don't make any extra holes on them. So I'll show you what Kathryn showed us to do when we're stitching down the leaves to keep from making too many holes in them. So I'm just going to keep going around till I get all the way around and I'll be back. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. I'm just going to take my needle back up through that corner where I started and make a knot. Secure the thread and then snip it off. Now there's the back, and when I'm all done with the card, I'm going to glue a piece of cardstock over the top to hide the stitching. And then that could be used for writing a greeting. Now I'm going to snip these pieces off the corners. That are kind of sticking out so they won't be seen. And there you have it in the front. Now I'm going to take another piece of thread and we're going to weave in and out of these running stitches. And there is a name for that. Can't remember what it's called. I know there's a name for it though. Oops. Just get my needle threaded here. Just started using a needle threader when I'm making a video so it doesn't take me so long to thread the needle. It usually happens when I'm making a video that takes me forever to thread the needle. And you don't need to watch that. So I'm going to start on the back through one of these stitches on the back. And I'll come come up through the front, right close to that first stitch, and then I'll just start weaving. Oops, got my thread kind of long. Just weaving under the stitches. Sometimes the needle gets stuck. You could use the other end of the needle if you wanted to make sure the needle doesn't get stuck in the fabric, but it's usually pretty easy to do. Usually goes under there pretty easy. I just like this because if you don't have even stitches, it just kind of makes your border look better. So now when I get to the end, I just kind of take another stitch down to secure all that. And then I come back up right by this next stitch on the other side. And then start weaving it in and out again. Now I'm done. This side I'm just going to go back in by that stitch to the back and then come up right close to this stitch. And start weaving again. That one doesn't want to go under there. There. Okay. So I'm going to do that all the way around and I'll be right back. Okay, I went all the way around and I tied it off here at the back in the corner. And this is the back, which we're mostly going to cover up with cardstock after we're done stitching the leaves. And then this is the front. And I think it makes a really nice border that way. I think it just looks a little neater than just the running stitches. So I'm going to press this down and then we'll get on with stitching our leaves. Oops, card wants to curl up on me. Okay. I'm going to put this leaf down where I want it and then just add a little glue to the back. To be really careful if they're dry because you don't want to crack them. Okay. I want it right there. Probably should have Mod Podged these, but I'm going to try it without and see how that works. I have some thread left in my needle. Just going to see if that's enough to do this one little leaf. Hopefully it is. So my plan is to just stitch down this center vein, and then once I get that done, I can go back and stitch these other veins. I'll see how the leaf responds to stitching before I decide to do that. So I think I'll start from up here at the top. I'll just come up from the back, right close to the leaf. Actually, I'm gonna put my needle mark in first. This is what Kathryn showed us. We should poke with our needle on the front where we want to come up from the back. And that avoids us poking from the back and not exactly knowing where to go. So you should be able to see that hole from the back. And then you can come right up on the front, right where you want. And then go right down through the leaf, through the material, through the card. And you have your first stitch in your leaf. Now you can come up from the back, from the front. You can just poke a hole where you want your next stitch to be. And then come up from the back and through that hole into your leaf and do a back stitch. And then continue doing that all the way down. And that really helps when you poke the hole from the front. You're not making holes in the leaf that don't need to be there. And that leaf did crack a little bit right there. I'm going to try to do longer stitches so I don't have to do too many. Because it is kind of flaking. Yep, a little piece flaked off. Should be able to glue that back on. Hopefully. Yep, got it glued right back in. Okay. Now just a couple more stitches and we'll be done. I'm not sure that I'm gonna stitch the veins on this one because it is cracking. I think 2 more stitches will be enough. Oop, and my needle come unthreaded. Hopefully I can get it threaded without too many problems. Just use a needle threader so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, back up through our hole that we made. And hopefully I can get one more stitch. I think I'm going to do it right at the end. Yes, needle come unthreaded again. That's what happens when you have a short amount of thread in your needle. Okay, hopefully it will stay threaded so I can do this last stitch. Right here. Not pull too tight. Okay, we made it. Just gonna weave the thread through. I don't think there's enough left to make a knot. And it's going to be covered up anyway when we glue our cardstock on there. Okay, so there's the leaf stitch down. Can't really see the stitching, but it's there. I think I'm just going to leave that little stem. Maybe I should couch it down so it doesn't break off. I've got a little bit more thread here. Try that. I think if I Mod Podged them, they would have been a little more flexible. Oh, I thought I had it threaded and I didn't. So I would suggest after you press them that you coat them with Mod Podge or wax, just to hopefully keep them a little more flexible so they don't crack. Made the hole. I'm coming up from the back. I'm just going to couch this little stem down. Just to hopefully keep it from cracking. Don't want it to crack off. Oops, don't come unthreaded again. Just a few more stitches. And pull it out just a little without making it crack. I think this is such a great craft. So I've always loved leaves, and I always can't resist picking up a leaf that's fallen, especially in the fall with the different colors. And I press them, and then A lot of times I'm like, what am I going to do with them? So now we can make little cards and pieces of art with just a few stitches and some fabric scraps and cardstock. You have a beautiful piece of art. So I'm going to attach these other 2 leaves and I'll be back to show you the results. Okay, I've got them all stitched down. I'm really happy with how they turned out. I did go ahead and add Mod Podge to them after I got them stitched down because they were really pretty dry and I was afraid they would maybe crack or chip off. Thankfully, none of them did, but I just wanted to preserve them for future use. So I did add some Mod Podge over the top, and I would suggest that you either Mod Podge or wax coat them after you press them before you start stitching. But I didn't do that this time because I wanted to see how it would react without that, and I suggest coating them with something unless they're really, really fresh. So I did finish the stitching. I just couched down the stems and I back stitched down the vine, the middle spine, and I didn't do any of the outer spines because they were so dry. But if they were more flexible, I would have stitched more on them. Then I added these little words. I just glued them down with a glue stick. Grateful, thankful, blessed. And then I'm going to now cover up the stitching on the back. I've chosen a 4x6 index card. I'm going to use the blank side, but if you wanted to, you could use the line side. I'm going to cut this to about 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. So it just fits over the stitching, but it doesn't hide the border. So I've got my little trimmer. And I want to make sure I get all that stitching underneath and trimmed off, just to make it look neat. So I'm going to trim this down to 3 1/4 by 5 1/4, or about 5 1/4, because this index card is 4x6. So 3 1/4 should be right here. I tried a 3x5 index card, but it's just a little too short. So hopefully this will be correct if I measured right. Okay, it should work fine. I will just glue that down with some Fabri-Tac glue. Like I say, if you wanted to put it this way with the lines, you could, but I think it looks better with just blank, and then you can write your own message on there if you want, or if you're giving this to someone as a gift, they could write a message on there. I'm just going to put a little Fabri-Tac in each corner. And then all around the sides. And down the middle. Just enough to hold it on there. And to cover up that stitching. should work. So there we have it. The back side. You could write a note to a friend. You could put a quote on there. You could leave it blank. And then we have the front side. Oops, upside down. We have the front side and the back side. So I think it makes a really nice little postcard. You could send it in the mail. I would put it in an envelope, maybe a padded envelope, to protect the leaves. And you could write a message to someone on the back. What I put them in is these little vinyl clear bags. I got them on Amazon. They're 100 little bags, 5 by 7/16 and 7 1/4 clear bags. And I put these, excuse me, the 4 by 6 fits in these very well. They're 5 by 7 bags. I did order these photograph sleeves that are 4 by 6, but they're really too small to fit this in. They're just exactly the same size, but you know, they won't fit in there properly. I tried it. They just won't bend enough to go in. So you could use these 4 by 6 photograph sleeves if you made your cards are like a 3 by 5 maybe. You could use a 3 by 5 index card to create one like this and put it in these 4 by 6, or you could use a 5 by 7 clear bag and just slip them in that. It is a sealed bag, so you could put it. You could pad the top of this, put it in this, and put it in an envelope and send it through the mail. Excuse me. So, hope you enjoyed watching. I hope it inspired you in some way to perhaps make some of these for yourself or to give as gifts. And I hope you enjoy stitching on leaves. I hope to see you again soon for another video. If you're not subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe. I will be posting videos hopefully every week. Have a great day and thanks for watching.